Dominic, do you have anything to discuss
In connection with the correspondence?
with, yeah, that would be good.
No, I do not believe I do.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I got one thing.
Sure.
Could the town provide us with cornwall.newyork.gov emails so I can separate work and personal?
Say it again.
Could we get planning board emails from the town instead of using our personal email addresses? Just to get all correspondence for the planning board?
Never heard that question before.
I believe that when we did the comprehensive plan for the village of Cornwall and Hudson, we were all provided with an email address which was linked to the village.
I just like keeping.
It makes sense.
Okay. Proper procedure for that.
I think that request should be routed through the supervisor's office and he can put you in touch with the webmaster and
Okay, I will contact the supervisor's office
IT
and
department.
make that request.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, moving forward, everybody received a copy of the minutes? Everybody just like the minutes that Fran did? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
So
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Very good. Okay, we have a couple resolutions which we basically approved last month and asked Dominic to prepare, which he diligently did. We have one that was not quite ready yet, but I'll just ask for authorization to sign it when it's ready. Okay, does everybody know the two resolutions? One was the Cornwall Social, and the other was the project on Route 32, the mixed-use site plan. Everybody's aware of them? Okay,
Make a motion to accept those and have them be processed.
So for Cornwall Social, there is both an adoption of a negative declaration and the resolution as presented.
so we'll have to adopt a neg deck first.
So
Okay, motion? Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the final resolution? Motion,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay, are you?
For one of those.
Oh, you just stand out.
Excellent job, Dustin. There you go.
Nice that you joined us, that's good. Okay, with that, and Dominic, the resolution for Route 32.
Yes, so once again, there will be a negative declaration for that. That is also on the agenda tonight, however, because they did submit revised plans. So you may want to forego the approval on that until that discussion.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, with that, we have no public hearing scheduled tonight, so we'll go right into two girls, one boy holding. You're here, I know.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mark Lansky for Two Girls, One Boy Holdings LLC. So the request this evening is for a parking waiver. I believe the board has seen and reviewed the parking and traffic study, and I've seen the comments from town consultant, and I don't see that there's any adverse impact. The board has the power to waive under the section of the code for downtown parking up to 1/3 of the spots. I believe that if the board undertakes that waiver, I would request a referral to the zoning board for the setbacks. And that's what we're looking to do this evening.
Very good. That's good. We're trying to be concise on this evening, so we'll go right to Chris.
Sure, so as you can see, most of the site plan issues that we brought up in April have not yet been addressed, so I won't go through them because they're a lot of the same items that we spoke about in previous months. There's a new lighting plan that the applicant has provided that we had comments on. I guess it kind of ties into earlier comments with respect to landscaping because there is a residential property to the rear of this site, so we need to be careful with lighting and make sure that we mitigate impacts there. With respect to the parking, the architectural designs have not been updated this month, so the architectural designs do not match the site plan with respect to the total number of parking spaces and the number required. And the number of chairs the number of seats for the various restaurants that are proposed. Aside from that inconsistency, what you do have is a worst-case scenario. If you look at the architectural designs, which show more seats than the site plan references, you have a worst-case scenario. The applicant is requesting a waiver from this board of 30% that is related to their location within the Main Street parking district. The town board recently commissioned a parking study that discusses the availability of parking on Main Street and the times of that availability particularly. And so this applicant has also prepared a parking study specific to their use, which kind of piggybacks on that study in that it identifies, of course, that the town study shows that there is available on-street spaces during the peaks that this use is, will be the highest use of their site.
I hate to break in, but Mr. Chairman, we are in receipt of the Crichton Manning study being referenced in draft form.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
So for this project, they were requesting the 30% waiver with respect to being located in the town's parking district. They're also requesting that the board consider the fact that their accessory uses, it's likely that the users of those accessory uses, the restaurant and the bar, and any meeting rooms or conference areas that this hotel may have, they're likely to also be hotel patrons. So there's likely to be overlap there with respect to the parking usage at the site. The parking,
Excuse me, percent, but that 30% figure, is that 30% of, isn't the of what the question?
so the 30% is, yes, of course. The 30% is related to the parking district. So that is the 30% of, you're gonna make me actually read these specific numbers. That is 30% of 62.
There's an
63.
overall parking demand for various different uses on this site.
75.
Yeah, the site plan says 75, but the architectural designs show significantly more chairs and restaurant seats than the site plan does. That's kind of the issue. I think
That's the
that's what
question.
the board is struggling with, is that what are they issuing a waiver from? Because your numbers are not really consistent. And so even if they're inclined to issue a waiver of the 30%, it's 30% of what? 30%, what is your maximum parking demand? Is it the 75, or is it the number that the architectural plans show a different number, greater number?
The
of
request
seats?
is from the 75. So to be clear, we're requesting a 30% waiver from the 75.
So as I mentioned earlier, so that is, it's kind of, the responsibility is on the applicant to identify that number, because if they then proceed to the zoning board of appeals and they ask for, they're asking for a variance, whatever's left over from 30% based on the 75 spaces. If they have asked you for the wrong thing and they ask the ZBA for the wrong number, that's on them. And they've wasted their own time and their own money. And they have a variance for what they have, so they're gonna have to rectify that. I will tell you that before you sign any plans to actually begin this construction, those numbers will need to be consistent, so that we know exactly what's being constructed, so we don't drive Gary crazy.
So we have from Tim Miller Associates, a study provided by the applicant. And on the second page of that, they call for 52 occupied rooms, 61 spaces, and then they talk about a quality restaurant, 36 seats, requiring 17 spaces, that would be a total of 78. Or they say a high turnover sit-down restaurant requiring 12 spaces, that would be 73. I'm assuming that what is meant by the table, and help me understand fully, since we're right in the middle of this issue right now, is you're going to do either a quality restaurant or a high turnover sit-down, not both.
He did the analysis based upon the two potential.
So you're not intending to do all three?
No, certainly not intending to do all three. And the ask is based on 75. I thought we had gotten our architectural plans coordinated, and I can only apologize for that.
Okay, because you're showing 78 for the quality restaurant and 52 occupied rooms in your own study, which was the one that I reviewed for tonight's meeting. But you're actually asking for 75.
75.
Okay, so the number of seats in the restaurant would be less than 36 seats.
Yes.
So they're asking for 35% of 75? Is that-
30%
30, I'm sorry, 30%, yes.
of 75.
30 of 75. Okay, so we're dealing with that. That's the number we are dealing with. If we are providing a recommendation to the referral to the zoning board of appeals, that is the basis of the number. I don't want to just provide a referral to the planning board without having, or with the zoning board without having a basis of a number. So the number basis is 75. Everybody got it?
That's
That's
the,
53 spaces.
so just to clarify that, that's the maximum number from every aspect of this property. That's the magic number, including a possible overlay, but that is the number that you're stating is going to do, top floor bar, it's gonna do conference room, it's gonna do hotel rooms, it's gonna do everything that was on that list.
Yeah, we're requesting a waiver of 1/3 to go from 75 down,
30%, right?
and 30%. And we are showing 52 rooms, and we believe that we will not, at that point in time, need a variance. We will need to update our architectural plans, which we going and,
So I'm
again,
seeing a relief of 22 spaces. I mean, I just want to be super clear here.
yeah, we have 54 spaces provided, so 23 spaces. No, 54 spaces.
It'll be 21.
21.
So I see 20, so 30% of 75 gives you 22 spaces
22,
back.
thank you.
That's the relief you're seeking through the waiver.
And our consultant last month at our meeting stated 25%, correct, or recommended 25, I believe that was listed here.
For overlap.
That was for overlap.
That was for overlap.
Right.
now, Kristen, might I jump the gun on you on this one? But then the question is, what is the impact on that fire lane issue? And that's I guess Sean, you'll be dealing with that. So I'll let Kristen Fisher before we move that parking thing forward, there's got to be a relationship there because you're dealing with a specific confined space. So if you have parking spaces, you're taking up fire lane, we'll clarify that 1 second. Let me finish with Kristen first.
I think that the parking issue is basically what the applicant is asking this board to focus on tonight because they're asking for their referral to the ZBA. So I think, right, the waiver is important because the waiver and the consideration of the overlap is important because the applicant needs to take a finite number to the ZBA to get that variance.
So can we finish? I mean, at the risk of doing public math, to me, that sounds like if we were to provide the 25% overlap relief that Phil Greeley had mentioned at last month's meeting, that would leave a requirement of 40 spaces. Sean, I'm not sure.
Is that a 25% of the restaurant seats? Because I think you're including the hotel seats in there as well.
Yeah, so I think Phil was talking about a 25% relief of the overall parking requirement, not just the restaurant.
I don't understand why we would reduce the hotel by 25%. It should just be the
There's
accessory spaces.
There's 2 sections of the code,
Right.
right? And so I started tonight asking, based upon being downtown, and you're allowed to provide
30%
30%, excuse me, based upon that one section of the code. You're also allowed to provide additional relief based upon the uses being similar. And it is true that most zoning codes have the restaurants included. And that's why you have that section to provide you with that additional relief if it's requested.
The overlap.
The overlap. So the comment of the consultant about the overlap is independent of that from it being downtown.
Right, so if we gave you 25% of the total you're requesting for, you're actually getting less seats than just if there was no restaurant. There'd be less parking spots than no included. So I don't see how we can count the overlap as part of the hotel seats. The overlap should be the restaurant seats getting reduced. I don't see how we can reduce the whole thing because the hotel is requiring 61 spaces.
That's maximums. I understand.
I was trying to simplify it and take the overlap out of it, because and that's why I was just staying with the one section of the code. And so you're entitled to give me the 30% under the one section based upon us being downtown without considering the overlap.
So
And that gets us to where I need to be. That gives me the 22 spots, that gets me to the zoning board, and then we don't need to worry about the overlap. So,
Okay, so the only relief you're seeking in terms of parking from this board tonight is the 30% reduction allowed under the code.
yes, for being downtown.
It's a good problem to have, I have to tell you.
And then he's still requesting to go to the zoning board, or he meets that, is that?
Still needs it there.
I need variances for setbacks as well. It's an existing structure.
But he needs the waiver to go to the zoning board.
But I'm just saying is of that onion,
Even with the waiver, if to flip it around the other way, I think even with the waiver, you still don't have enough parking that's required by the code.
Right.
that's all we do.
Even though it's
I
not
want
in-
clarity.
So on page 2 of 7, how many total parking spaces are you showing on that page? I'm looking for a table or something.
I got a table on 2 of 7,
Yeah, no,
and it says, I'm providing 54 spaces, and 75 are required. And so if I have a variance for 22, a waiver for 22, then I'm okay.
Okay, so
And that's what I was looking for.
okay.
So 22 is the magic number.
A public forum, I'm asking a professor of engineering at West Point, is not this correct? I wouldn't even, we defer.
No, so I think I understand better now, Sean, I'm asking, I'm looking at you too, because we ought to be checking each other on this kind of stuff. But I think 50, if he's proposing to provide 54, then no further relief is required beyond the 30%.
Based on the 75 spots required.
Right, and the 75 spots you acknowledge does not match your Tim Miller Associates study that you provided with us with, which shows a requirement of 78.
And, well, it shows 2 different types of restaurants, with the average being 75. It says 78, it says 73, depending on the type of restaurant. And I also acknowledge it doesn't match the architectural, but it's still my request.
So you understand our confusion?
For, I do, it's still my request for a waiver based upon the downtown 22 spots.
And as Kristen stated earlier, I mean, you're proceeding to the Zoning Board of Appeals, knowing that these mismatches exist and that they will have to be resolved, you
Well,
know,
I'm gonna,
according to whatever the ZBA says in terms of relief.
well, they're gonna either grant me variances and they'll be based upon my submission, or they won't. But I understand that you wanna go to the ZBA once, and nobody wants to waste their time.
Very good. I mean, we got that.
So when we get back from the ZBA, it's not like the hotel's gonna add rooms again or add restaurant seats. This is kind of as Max says.
It would be a bad idea for me to try to change the plan after going to the ZBA
Indeed, it would.
and start it over. So it certainly makes things more concrete and finite.
So this is a max, so really you're speaking about a max build out in terms of the number of hotel rooms and seats and all that you're talking about. That's your max build out that you're
We
proposing.
spent a lot of time, and I heard your earlier comment about the question of whether this is self-created. And I would say that we spent time with the various hotel chains, and there are certain business models that you need a certain number of rooms. And so we are settled at 52.
And that business model is based on a preferred occupancy rate as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the applicant's onion to peel with the
Right.
ZBA,
Right.
not this board's primary concern. The primary concern here is that the number of rooms selected and the hotel use in terms of restaurants, that's the applicant's decision in
Right.
terms of a business decision. And they'll have to make their case to the ZBA as to the need for relief.
Okay, we're not gonna take that action up until we finish the report. Kristen, you have more?
No, I have nothing further.
Okay, Sean?
Sure, so I just reiterate Kristen's comment that the majority of my comments from last month are still unresolved. I just want to drive at not the parking demand, but the parking that's provided on the site. That may have to be reduced based on the 26-foot fire lane that's required through the site, which appears to be inadequate at this point in time.
So that would be the question. Do you have further? Okay, with that, let me go around the board and discuss this. Steve,
With regard to
The
the
fire
park, with regard to the
relationship
parking?
between the fire lane and the parking.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, if the parking lanes do subtract from parking, then what they're requesting through the reduction, the 30% would be less.
No. The parking, the layout of the parking based on the fire lane is gonna give how much they're providing versus the waiver you're considering is reducing the required number of parking spots.
And if we were to produce that waiver, would that reduce the volume of space necessary to have the fire lane meet the state code? Trying to draw the,
It really is dependent on the applicant's design. They may be able to keep the same number of spaces and provide the 26-foot lane, but really that's dependent on.
all right, what I mean is, the question is, if they have to have a certain number of parking spaces, is there any way that they can expand the fire lane? Because we can't move forward unless the fire lane meets state standards, correct?
Yep.
Period. Period.
They're right.
Yeah, the building's got to either move east or south without.
Okay, can you work with that?
Yeah, we've already made, changes to the plan. We had, parking all here on the angle, and this is all now parallel parking. We've already made certain adaptations, and we are, talking with Sean and appearing in front of the town board to, do another proposal on the lot owned by, another entity.
So ultimately, the issue of the fire lane is 1.5 feet, correct? 24 to 26, isn't it 26?
Yeah, shown at one point, it is down to 24.78 feet, I believe it is.
Okay.
Whereas 26 is required.
Okay, so you can figure that out.
If I need to get a variance for that, that's something I'll undertake, but.
Is that obtainable?
And it's obtainable through the state legislature.
Okay, so we won't, that's not our issue. Okay. Okay, with that, we'll have comments from the board. Steve,
I'm fine with that.
for the waiver?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with the waiver. I'm just concerned about the SWIP, the game, the number of games that we're playing of, is it 100 square feet off? How many square feet off are we from requiring a SIP?
I would just make one comment there, that part of what we're talking about with the town board involves building town parking on the adjacent lot and lowering the grade. And if we lower the grade, we get rid of retaining walls and we get rid of some of that issue.
So is that part of this project?
It's not part of this project. It's not intended to be part of this project, but it will have an impact on this project insofar as if we don't have to do retaining walls, there'll be less disturbance. And if there's less disturbance, we'll be well within the requirements.
So we're assuming the town board is going to undertake this project themselves?
I'm not making that assumption, but I'm saying that I have a strategy to address that. I believe that we're under the 1 acre, but I know we're very close, but we have a strategy to do some mitigatory work.
and the question that we're addressing right now,
It's just
the parking.
It's just the parking, so, but you,
Yeah, but I feel like it
Obviously-
goes back into the overall design of the
Ultimately.
whole plan of,
Yeah.
if we move
we don't want to do this
one,
piecemeal.
if we move one thing, like,
But in the end, the applicant owes us a plan which works, right? Which is either under 1 acre or includes stormwater mitigation.
Correct.
We don't have either of those things in hand yet, and so obviously we can't approve it as it sits. These parking spaces are gonna move around on that basis and based on the grading changes that the applicants
we
just
do
talked
have
about.
a plan here attached, which does show us being under the 1 acre, and it does show us dealing with the stormwater and that we're reducing the impervious surfaces. So that is part of this set. We did do the calculations and we believe as of today, it works. We understand the concern that Sean has because we're very close to the total number. And he's concerned about how that actually works and the retaining walls. And I'm saying, well, insofar as one line, we may have that addressed. But that's part of this set and it's not what we're asking for.
right, it's just a big concern of.
That's right.
Fair
One
enough.
thing
Fair
changes
enough.
in the
I'll get
whole
to you.
plan, we make one little shift of the fire lane, a parking space, and we have an unworkable situation.
So I would only ask that we include the Fiddlesticks rear yard of the adjacent actually has objects in it that are not shown in this plan. There's dumpsters and I think there's a freezer back there and some other things. I think if, since parking is such a close consideration, if we could show on the plan the actual condition of the existing, it's called existing paved parking, but there's other objects back there.
The dumpsters are movable and,
But I think there's also a walk-in.
there is a walk-in box there. I don't know that it's a permitted walk-in box, and I don't know that it's a structure. But I get your point.
Yeah, I mean, the existing condition includes a dumpster and that freezer back there. Just
The
show on the plan.
dumpsters sit in the easement. I'm not gonna show that. But I understand your point and we're.
Well, I mean, they gotta access, I mean, like, this board has to consider things like fire access and dumpster access. If you create a condition where we can't access an existing dumpster on an adjacent property, that's a condition we have to consider. So I don't concur with you on that. We have to show a workable access for that dumpster. So, I don't think I'm asking anything extraordinary.
But for the purposes of,
Going to the ZBA, I'm just saying, going to the ZBA, we gotta show the,
So they would not be required to go to the ZBA for the parking, just to be clear.
right, okay, that's right, parking's off the ZBA thing. So I think that doesn't have to show for the ZBA, but certainly for this board's consideration, especially given the fire concerns, yeah, we ought to be showing what's going on.
duly noted.
Understood.
Good?
Thank you.
We got a lot of issues here. Right now, we're just
Right. Yes.
working on this
So
special.
wait,
And they got big problems that we don't have to handle right now.
appreciate it.
Resolved tonight, yeah.
So
So you're okay?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Mary Beth, I'm sorry for,
No, I was concurring with my fellow board member. I just feel that there's so many unknown variables in this, from, a fire lane that could change parking, and what is our actual number? Yes, I know you're requesting 75, but there's a possibility of the lot next door for additional parking. I just feel that nothing is finalized to be able to pick those and be able to do those 22 spots. So that's my concern. Is there going to be more down the road where there are going to be changes and there's either going to be more spots, or are we strictly sticking with 30% and it is strictly only 22 spaces? Those are my concerns as to, it just seems like there's a lot of discussion and this could be, and I'm in the process and I'm looking at, and that's my
Mary
concern
Beth, the purpose of the,
for the waiver.
for the waiver to the, and the basis of that is the number 75. And the computation is based on
Just
us
to
saying that
confirm
we
that.
will allow for a 30% waiver of the 75 basis.
That's why I'm saying,
Spaces.
just to confirm that,
Okay, that's
With those-
what we're talking about.
that
Okay,
information.
and with that, I'll ask for a motion to refer to the zoning board.
Do we have two motions? First to grant the 30%, and then another to advance the ZBA?
Yes.
Dominic, is that?
That would be proper.
So I move that we approve a 30% reduction as allowed along Main Street. That would be a 22 space reduction from the 75 proposed by the developer.
Correct. Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Lynn, second.
Thank you. The second would be, I move that we send the application forward to the zoning board of appeals for setbacks and other reliefs as required.
Very good. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Much appreciated.
Okay, with that, Route 32, Mr. Yu. In 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
I got you here.
What's up? You're on.
So we provided information in paper form, and we also answered short list of questions, I guess, in the 8.5 by 11. So some of those was addressed in the drawings. And I believe the rest of it was answered in those questions.
Very good. Thank you. Kristen?
Yes, so our last few remaining questions were answered by the plans. The applicant's narrative does say that the limit of site disturbance will be shown on the plans. You can do that prior to plan signing, it's not really that, it's really just to be sure that when you are in the field, it's consistent and you don't overextend. The Orange County Planning Department issued a letter with no comments. This application is enlisted under seeker. At the last meeting, your board authorized the preparation of a negative declaration, which I forwarded to you last week. So we were recommending the adoption of the negative declaration tonight.
Complete. As always, good job on the day, Jack. Sean?
I have no further comments. The applicants addressed our previous comments.
Okay, very good. Steve?
No comments.
We had already approved that,
We have.
so we are ready to go.
Very good. Okay, with that, I'll take the motion to approve the neg deck.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We have possession, I believe, the neg deck, so I can just sign that. Okay, with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Yes,
Dominic?
this would be a motion to authorize your signature on the resolution of approval. There are no specific conditions associated with this other than the general conditions. There are no outside agency approvals throughout. There are no outstanding engineering comments. So the resolution itself is fairly straightforward.
Okay, with that, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay, everything signed resolutions, as soon as we have it.
It'll be later this week.
Excellent, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, appreciate it.
Okay, my vet rep Peter.
Hello, Neil, board members. We're back with the Vet Rep Theater, back before you with the revised set of plans. We believe that latest revised set of plans address the comments from Kristen and from Sean on their letters dated 4/27 and 5/1. Believe we addressed all their comments in their entirety. We do have two design elements that are progressing. One is associated with the hydrant that was located for us. We did show that on the plans. We realized that that needs an Orange County Department of Health review, probably with a flushing oven and things like that. So we haven't gotten any comments back on that. But we're also in the process of the design for the water lateral or water main needed for the sprinkler system. We have been in touch several times with the Village of Cornwall through Mike Trainer and trying to work that out. We did provide him the latest information that he required or requested, and we're waiting to get some further direction from him. Other than that, the revisions that we made are pretty self-explanatory with the entrance and exit on Continental, and now that the other entrance, curb cut is just for entrance only, and the additional landscaping and clarifications of on-site walkways to make the pedestrian access even that much easier on-site.
Very good. Thank you for being succinct. Kristen?
Yes, the applicant did revise the plans consistent with our previous comments, specifically related to landscaping. There was a note, it's just a drafting error that we pointed out. Orange County Planning Department issued a letter with a couple of recommendations. All of them are with respect to that access on Angola Road. The applicant, I concur with the county's recommendations, but the applicant needs to coordinate with DPW before they can go ahead and do things like add a crosswalk in, for example, on a county road. Those are good planning recommendations, but they require approval from DPW, so the applicant's gonna have to get feedback from DPW before they can really address these comments. You should probably bring them up when you meet with DPW. You should probably maybe bring Alan along. I think everyone can play nice together, so you weren't chasing your tail, but
Kristen, excuse me, that's the county DPW, correct?
correct, in Villa Rosa County Road.
And the pedestrian crosswalk you're talking about would connect to Cornwall Plaza?
Yes, that was one of the recommendations of Orange County Planning Department's letter. The applicant did add a little pedestrian pathway on the site, which doesn't cross the road, which is probably a better idea. It kind of connects the traffic circle with the site. What of the recommendation from the county just need to be addressed in one way or the other.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed by the,
Well, the applicant needs to address them, but again, it's something that'll have to be discussed between the applicant, the DPW, and planning, kind of, everyone needs to be on the same page. So, this board can't really recommend a crosswalk on a county road,
right, okay.
Wait, we could show support for such an idea though.
certainly.
Okay, in terms of circulation on this site, I mean, it seems clear if there is a parking overrun for some reason, that's the clear place people would put their cars.
That would make the most sense, yeah.
Right, and so safe pedestrian access, I think. Anyway, I would
So we just-
advocate that the board show their support for a pedestrian connection to Cornwall Plaza.
Okay, board, show your support for pedestrian access. Well, consent, by consent.
I could note that in our comment letter to them, or request for a meeting, that at tonight's meeting, that was a recommendation or request of the planning board.
Yeah, because it connects you to restaurants. I mean, it is a theater that connects to restaurants and other downtown services. You've got Twins Eating House, you've got Leo's, you've got, I believe there's an Asaki, or I'm trying to remember the name of there's a sushi place there. There's a Chinese, I mean, there's a number of places that people who were patrons of this theater would frequent, and having them go across Angola Road unprotected doesn't seem like a super great idea. So Sean, whatever support we can lend there.
Sure. Very good, okay, Kristen, thank you, sorry for that.
Sure. This application is type 1 under seeker because of the zoning amendment. All of my comments were addressed, but I'll let Sean discuss water sewer drainage before we can talk about completing seeker at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Kristen. John?
Sure, so I do have some technical comments with regards to drainage, as there was none shown on the plans, as well as some of the grades of the parking spots are over 11%, which doesn't seem feasible for parking, but I'll leave that for the applicant to address in that round. With regards to outside agencies, David spoke on the water needing Department of Health approval, as well as the Village of Cornwall and Hudson, who owns the water mains, their approvals for their install on the site. Thirdly, as we were discussing the crosswalk or any potential crosswalk across Angola, as well as modifications to the curb cut to Angola, will require approval from Orange County DPW. So,
Very good, John, thank you. Members of the board? I know, Mary Beth, you can go first.
I agree with both of our consultants, and at this time, I have nothing.
Okay.
You have a copy of these
No,
concerns?
no, it would be great to get the comment letters before the meeting so we can kind of prepare ahead of time, but I don't have the latest comment letters.
Will it be from the engineer and the planner? So
They
you
will
have to
provide-
follow up on these.
They will provide you herewith, correct?
Sure.
You guys have copies?
Yeah, sure. They can have-
We'll make sure you get copies. Apologies, we'll try to get them to you before.
It would just help make the meeting that much more productive. Thank you.
But we'll be productive for sure. I think.
Well, you gotta get taken care of.
Yeah,
otherwise it's not-
you're right. No, it's very well prepared. Okay. Steve?
No, just looking at the area of pavement, and I'm assuming this pavement is all just edge of pavement, correct? There's no curbing.
Correct.
So you're relying on drainage generated on this pavement to sheet flow on the adjoining grass?
Yes,
Because it is all heading downhill to Continental Road.
correct.
And there's only that one basin that sits on one side of the road there. That's
We
my
can
concern.
work on that. We take a closer look at it.
I wasn't sure if I saw a lighting plan.
Yes, we do.
Was there, and I just was concerned because there are adjacent properties and we hadn't really shown where maybe one of the plans could be drawn out a little bit so that we could see where the adjacent structures are. I know that there are adjacent structures, especially on 23-3, 24-1, and 24-2. I believe there are residential structures there. And so it would be good if the lighting plan showed impacts on those adjacent residences.
I have no problem with that. Again, our lighting plan does show that the photometrics remain on site. They're not spilling off or bleeding off onto adjacent properties.
Well, then perhaps a note to that effect, you know, that would leave something, I mean, maybe there is a note already here about that, but a note that showed that so that, you know, some future date, somebody doesn't hang a floodlight on the back of your theater building to improve the lighting in the parking lot, and now that's looking right into the neighbor's window.
Understandable.
The lighting plan, it labels the photometrics. And the other thing that the applicant did with this plan revision is that they added additional evergreen trees along that property boundary.
Okay.
So they're at, I don't have a 1 foot, of course, I don't have a 0.1 foot candle line, I have a 0.5, but that's probably 5 or 6 feet even from the trees. And then you have 2 rows of evergreen, and then after that is the property. So I think that they're pretty good. The plan also has details of the lights, so.
So there's something enforceable. What I'm going after is there something enforceable there? Because there have been difficulties in nearby municipalities with light spillage from.
Absolutely, and it's
commercial.
not uncommon for no one to know what the site plan says. Especially when properties or buildings get bought and sold.
Correct.
You know, I don't think, I mean, even basically based on this layout, I don't think we'll ever put a floodlight on the building, but they are kind of locked into the height and the fixtures that they're proposing here. And then it just becomes an enforcement issue after that.
Right, but a note on the plan would make that very clear. So
I think Broadway lights across the theater, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And a marquee.
Well,
Right.
do we know also what the hours of operation are because the movements, again, that impacts the movements of vehicles as they leave the theater at the end of the evening's production, you know, that's again the adjacent property owner. And I'm always trying to look out for their interests with a new use like this. So I don't know if there are proposed hours also for the lighting.
We'll note that on the plan.
Good.
Yeah, and thank you for Mr. Chairman for tolerating my earlier interruption about the pedestrian access, but pedestrian access and connections is gonna be an
Your
important part
concerns
of
are
all
always
this work.
welcome. Right, you know that. Did any other board comments? John? Very good. Now, our objective is not to hinder the project, but to facilitate it within the rules. So, Dominic, what would be how can we,
This is a bit of an unusual situation, as you mentioned previously, because the application is pending before this board without the zoning being in place yet.
Right.
The applicant has appeared before the town board. My understanding is that the town board was receptive to the proposal and is moving forward with a zoning amendment that would allow this project to ultimately, you know, be reviewed and ultimately potentially be approved by this board. But it hasn't concluded that process yet.
Right.
So it's still ongoing. And as a result, my recommendation to this board is that it would be premature to hold a public hearing on this application until the town board process completes.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that part of the benefit of having a public hearing is not only hearing issues that are important to the public, but also hearing issues as they relate to the code that applies to a project. And right now, it's kind of in this limbo of being proposed before the board, but the legal authority for the project to move forward isn't there. So I think as soon as I'm sure provide an update, Mr. Moco, but I think as soon as the town board, you know, takes it to that point, and then if this board is comfortable, I think the next step in the process would be a public hearing.
Mr. Cardisco, could we potentially set a public hearing in anticipation of the adoption of the zoning with the intent of holding said public hearing open? In the event that the zoning is not complete, we would hold said public hearing open until that zoning had been adopted and the public did have an opportunity to comment. But that would then potentially save 30 to 60 days.
It could, you know, it depends on sometimes, like, if you hold the public hearing and then you don't close it, but then you have to, like, you potentially have to renotice it to allow the public to know. Like, let's say, for instance, if you had a public hearing at your July meeting, and then for whatever reason, the zoning wasn't adopted until sometime in the fall, then they would have to come back before you, and then you would have to have some way of letting the public know that, that you're reconvening a public hearing.
Do you know that?
Another alternative, if I may, would be to authorize a public hearing, subject to, the town board adopting zoning.
Oh.
So that way they don't
That's
have
why
to come
he's
back.
here.
So,
Very innovative, Dominic, that was excellent. It's a really good suggestion. Oh, another person.
This is Lilia Frank, she's
I'm the
operator of the.
director of that rep, and if I can speak to the town board public hearing that happened on the 9th of May, they left it open because specifically Steve Gatta explained to the board that they could not close the hearing because the planning board had not finished the process.
Okay, I don't want you guys getting caught in the whirlpool.
And so we're in a chicken and egg situation.
And that's where we
And so it
like
seems
we're
like
caught.
both boards are saying we can't do anything, we want to have a public hearing, but leave it open until the other board does something. But the town board has left their public hearing open, an expectation that the planning board.
Welcome to government.
So
Well,
let me ask
well,
Mr. Cordisco a question then related to this. So, Mr. Cordisco, usually zoning can only be adopted after the planning board's had an opportunity to comment on that, on the proposed zoning change. But I didn't see anything in our packet that asked for our specific comment or feedback yet on the zoning change. So that may be why Mr. Gaba asked for them to keep the public hearing open.
Didn't
They
we,
wanted secret finished and they wanted the public hearing finished.
no, we did that. Yes. Oh, wait. Again, Dominic, didn't we make a recommendation to the town board on the zoning? I believe
I
it
think the
was in
question
the
is,
discussion.
No, I don't believe we did, because I brought that up, and the explanation was that we needed to hear back from the town board
That's-
first. Right.
and it seems like the town board didn't take
We
action.
do have town board
They
members
did
here.
as much action as they could, and they went through the public hearing, but they could not close it out and they could not vote.
Well, why don't I do this, if I might break precedent, and Dominic, with you, with you, my authority. We have town board members here, and maybe you can give us an indication, perhaps, of the sense of the town board on this.
We were told not to leave the public hearing open until the planning board provided direction. Lily is absolutely correct.
Okay, so,
Right, they're looking for feedback from, so I don't believe that a zoning change can be adopted without this board providing comment back to the town board on a proposed zoning change. We have that proposed zoning change in front of us now. Could we direct our attorney?
I'll alter my advice, to the board, which was originally, because it's an unusual circumstance where you're considering an application that's quite frankly not allowed under the zoning
Right.
that's at present. I understand, thank you for the update in connection with the town board, and, it is a chicken or the egg situation.
yes,
This board, is lead agency for an environmental review. So what I'm hearing is that the town board is going to be considered as part of this overall environmental review that you are undertaking. You typically do not render a decision under seeker until you've had a public hearing.
Right.
So my recommendation, have a public hearing.
so that's your revised thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes,
the
just
board-
just to move it along.
And we do want to be forward moving on this, and we do not want to hinder, and I got this feeling, and I'm really claustrophobic, and I really can't see this, and we are spinning in circles, so let's stop the circle, and let's, I recommend maybe we take a motion to schedule a public hearing for this. That is the best we can do, and then the town board would be
You could-
facilitated to
Yeah.
move this thing along.
There's been discussion about having typically this board does not have, or doesn't have a regularly scheduled meeting for July because of the way the July 4th holiday falls. But there is discussion about holding a special meeting in July on Monday, July 10th. So if you want to move forward with the public hearing, you could have a public hearing then.
Okay, the town board member wish to,
No, I'm just concerned, I know this has been this parallel process we've been talking about. And I don't think we've really had a meeting of the minds in terms of the information. So what you're asking me as a town board member is what again?
no, you've given us the update that we needed, that's
It's
it.
this
There's
parallel
nothing.
thing, and I really think that.
What we're going to do is schedule a public hearing for our July 10th meeting so that it can facilitate the town board's consideration, am I correct, Dominic? That's what we'll do then, and we can move it along and it's another step forward, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion to schedule a
I'll make the
public hearing.
motion.
Second,
Should we schedule the meeting first?
A second.
we schedule it right.
Okay.
Second, all in favor?
No.
Aye.
And I will point out that the precedent is that we do not hold public hearings on projects that the plans are incomplete. But under this circumstance, it seems unusual that it is in consideration of a town board action. So with that, we'll have a public hearing scheduled on July 10th, and we'll move it down the step forward.
And if the applicant wishes, they can certainly respond to the outstanding issues that were discussed tonight, as long as you make the submission by the regular submission date, which will be in June. June 21st.
Okay, with that, we do have a schedule, but Linda has a fair point.
I have a question here. So we have in our packet a letter from Steve Gaba, which refers to the planning board for review and report pursuant to the town code. The above reference proposed local law, right? So we have this, which I believe in the past we have, after reviewing this, we've directed our attorney to prepare a response to the town board, which would allow the town board to then close out their process in that pursuit. But Mr. Crisco, maybe we could take a quick.
I unfortunately, I didn't see that, a copy of that in my packet.
All right, I can bring it to you if you'd like to see it. I think we should just take a quick, it's okay if we spend a couple minutes and
We want to get it
straighten
moving,
this
sure.
out. Yep.
Question? Oh, yes,
While that's being done, just as an order of procedure,
Sure.
is the public hearing notice sent to us and then we mail it out, or does?
You're not invited.
You as the applicant are totally responsible for all the paperwork and notices and the mailing.
Okay, so you'll send us the public notice and we mail it out?
Now, call my office tomorrow and we'll explain it to you.
Sure.
That
was as direct as could be. Thank you.
Okay, what am I missing?
So there is a referral, it's dated May 15th. It's a letter from Stephen Gaba to the chairman. And it has a copy of the proposed local law that would allow this project to move forward. It changes, it has several effects. One would be to change the property zoning from SR1 to general commercial. And then the second would be to create a theater as a allowed use within the GC zone. And then it also includes a definition of a theater, which is a building or enclosed structure or portion thereof used as a performance hall for live productions, motion pictures, concerts, or other entertainment of groups of people.
So Dominic, this local law was passed?
No, this is introduced and now referred over to you, and now the board has an opportunity to comment on the proposal back to the town.
And typically in the past, Mr. Chairman, we've asked our attorney to prepare the board's response based on the board's discussion at the meeting at which we received the referral. In my own reading of this change to local law, I think that the change from SR to general commercial of this particular lot is consistent with the comprehensive plan for the town of Cornwall. I believe that the overall change proposed is within the intent of that plan. And so I personally see it as an improvement to the zoning and recommend that the board provide the town board with affirmative support of that change.
I'll
to
take
the
that as a
zoning.
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So Mr. Frisco, then we'll
I will send a letter to the town,
Okay, yes,
Wonderful.
and I will copy Mr. Gavin on it.
thank you. That would be good, because I point out, Mr. Gavin's letter just said, if the town planning board has any questions, feel free to contact me. I prefer to ask for a reference, it would be better. Okay, with that, you're good.
Great, thank you very much, have a great evening.
See you on July 10th.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Here you did it.
We could agree.
We haven't scheduled.
Does it need
Oh,
to be in a
okay.
minute?
Yeah, I'll do that under discussion.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, with that, we have Lands of Shop.
Good evening, everyone. Ryan Smitham, engineer for the applicant. It's been quite a while since we were here last, so the board would like, I'd give you a brief overview of the project and a few changes that were made, and then be free to open for questions.
Great.
So the project site is located on the southerly side of Waterview Terrace, approximately halfway down the length of Waterview Terrace. The project site is located in the SR1 zoning district and consists of a parcel of approximately 5 acres in size. The project proposes a 2-lot subdivision of a lot. Lot 1 consisting of 3.4 acres in size, and lot 2 being 1.6 acres in size approximately. Both proposed dwellings are proposed to connect to existing public sewer through an existing easement on
With the easement.
easterly side, southeasterly side of lot 2, to the existing public sewer along Lakewood Drive. Both dwellings are proposed to be served by private wells, and both dwellings are intended to access Waterview Terrace via private driveways. Since the last time we were here, there's been some changes based on shown comments for cover on the sewer, also some improved drainage at the entrance to the site, connecting to the existing drainage along Waterview Terrace. Additionally, we prepared a comparison plan based on the clearing, which I know was a concern of the board. Just a little history on this. Prior to the subdivision application.
Could we underline that part about the clearing? It was a concern of the board,
Yes.
because it is a very good concern of the board.
Just based on the discussion before the meeting,
Okay.
it sounded like there was concern.
Okay.
So, prior to this application for the 2-lot subdivision, this plan was submitted by MAG Designs for the development of a single-family dwelling on the parent parcel. And it showed proposed clearing based upon this plan. The building department issued a building permit based upon this plan, and construction had commenced up somewhere in between when the application was made for the subdivision and the building permit being issued.
Got it.
As a result of that, clearing was completed on the site based upon this plan. Our plan has been revised to take that clearing into account. I prepared a comparison plan based on the proposed clearing on the building department permitted plan, based on the clearing that was actually completed on the site. And if you can see here, there's a tree line in green. This is on an aerial overlay of a drone photo that was taken by my office prior to any work being done on the site when the survey was completed by my office. There is some remaining tree line along here, and then the green continues around the exterior of the site and comes back into Waterview Terrace where the proposed entrances, or where the entrance to lot 1 is proposed. The line in red here is the approved, we'll say, based upon the building permit plan line of clearing that was prepared. The original plan listed individual trees that were to be removed and then showed some approximate limits of canopy. There were some of the improvements that were located within that canopy. And the trunks of the trees, each tree that was removed, shown to be removed, was based upon the trunk location, not necessarily the canopy that tree produced. So this limits of canopy that is shown here is very approximate. Based on that, and it's also very generous to where these locations are, these trunk locations are. So based on that canopy and the clearing that was completed, approximately 0.3 acres additional clearing was completed by the contractor on the site. With the proposed clearing on the site, we're looking for the proposed lot 2. We're looking to increase the amount of clearing by approximately 1 acre. The original approved plan for just the lot 1 by itself was proposing 2.2 acres. We're proposing an additional acre, making the average clearing between the 2 lots down to 1.6 acres each. So an overall reduction of clearing per lot basis, but an increase from the existing clearing which is now there. Board has any questions?
The math.
I mean, I'll look to our consultants.
Yes, we will look to the consultants. Kristen, will you be able to explain the mathematics of that?
I'm not the math department up here, I'm a social scientist, and things go down that way.
No, I became a lawyer because I was bad at that.
Yeah.
Why are we? Most law school graduates are math majors, Don. We'll rely on you for that one. Okay.
How about Sean start?
Okay, well, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, not a problem.
Sean's office has been out to this site, so it probably makes
Right.
most sense for him to start here.
Okay, Sean?
Sure, so, we've been working with Gary's office on, existing notice of violations for erosion and sediment control, issues, as well as the clearing issue that was brought up back last year, I think it was. Was there any specific questions with regards to the clearing, or do you want to just need to go to my comments?
I just go to your comments.
Sure. So we have some outstanding comments with regards to the scope that was prepared, technical in nature that should be easily addressed. Our previous sewer comments, as these homes are going to be constructed with onsite wells and sewer supplied by the town. Our previous sewer comments have been addressed. And then we just have additional drainage concerns with regard to how the driveways are connecting to Waterview Terrace, as well as the drainage improvements that will carry the drainage from the driveways to existing town infrastructure, but those should be pretty easy for the applicant's engineer to address.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Kristen?
Sure. So I basically, the last time we were here, the public spoke and said that they believe that there was more clearing than should have been going on. That's kind of where we stopped with this application before. So the applicant has provided exactly what the board asked for, which is an overlay with the drone footage that was taken. You can kind of, I don't know if you can see from up there, I can hardly see it from here, but red line versus green line on this map, you can kind of see. Why don't you show the board, like the red line versus the green line?
So
Can the board member see this?
areas of.
I can't see the colors, but I can see the lines.
Okay, the general areas of overclearing, I would say. This is the red line here versus the green line back here.
Okay.
Right, so the red was what was supposed to be done,
Right.
and the green is what was actually done.
There's some under clearing along this area, and then the actual clearing was taken up to basically to the property line versus this area of where the proposed line was. I will note that on the approved plan, there were portions of the proposed pool area that were within that tree line, which is not feasible. So that may have been a faulty tree line there, and it might have actually been proposed to be taken out, but this area there was some overclearing in this area based upon that approved plan. And then generally, the two lines are consistent through here with a small section of overclearing in this area, which will be utilized for the dual entrances and improvements in the proposed subdivision.
Okay, well, this will require a site plan approval at some later time, correct?
Subdivision approval.
Just subject.
This is just a subdivision approval.
Correct. Yeah, because it's just single-family homes that are being proposed.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the narrative says that some individual, like isolated mature trees were saved.
Yes.
Were those the green dots?
Yes,
If I read
I'm sorry, I
the
didn't
plan
cover
correctly?
that. There are some green dots that are, in here that were not considered in the, under-cleared portions. They were just considered as cleared in the calculations. And then additionally, there is some tree line as a buffer between the property to the north and the existing lot. that was
Yeah, I think-
maintained.
Those isolated trees, I think, so one of our comments was that I was not quite sure that those were the isolated
Yes,
trees, but
that's
they
my
were
fault.
green dots. And you have there's a soil stockpile in one of them. But aside from that, I think that they should probably be proposed to be protected during construction. I think that those will go a long way in, from a visual perspective, to mitigate that view that probably appears fairly clear cut, from the neighbors' properties.
Absolutely.
And then it also maybe protect against them being inadvertently damaged during additional construction with a lot of vehicles out there. The narrative also discusses trees that were cleared on a neighbor's property inadvertently.
Yes.
So those are along the driveway up top, correct?
I believe those were actually,
Oh, they're in
and the contractor's here and can speak to that. I believe those were on the northwesterly side of the lot where it almost comes down to Waterview Terrace. There's approximately 3 saplings that were mistakenly cut they were kind of into the wall. They've kind of grown into the stone wall, and as a result, the contractor's workers got a little overzealous and cut those off, thinking that they were on the property.
Has there been any discussion for replacement of those? Because there's no planting plan with the plant.
Correct. The contractor has indicated that he would replant the trees.
Plans need to indicate that.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that that should be shown on the plans, whether it's on your property or whether you've gotten permission to plant them on the neighboring property, one way or the other. I think that those should be shown.
Absolutely. We want to discuss it with the board and say,
Okay, so you acknowledge
replacing.
the error and you're prepared to make the accommodations, okay?
Yes. Yes, just wanted to get the board's opinion on it before proposing.
You'll get it.
That would be a condition of any approval, at least that's as far as I would recommend to the board, that they not only,
Can you put a condition of a CO? Not just a subdivision, but prior to CO for the house being built, that's to be completed?
you know, we can discuss like the timing of it as the board moves forward, but, you know, you want to ensure that actually the work is going to be done at some point.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic. Okay, Steve.
At this point, I will recuse myself as I did some of the survey work for the adjoiner with regard to the trees that were cut over the lot.
Thank you for your honesty or integrity or something like that.
No comments.
So it appears to me that what happened is a bunch of clear cutting was done because it was a single house property in order to open up views to the northwest. And then the subdivision plan came in once there was the de facto clearing had finished, and the board did not have the opportunity to consider the view shed impacts of said clearing. And now we're being asked to swallow whole that lot 2 gets this beautiful view to the northwest that they desired at the beginning when all the cutting took place prior to the application landing on our table. And so I think a landscaping plan which restores the view shed of the neighbors along Waterview Terrace, who now are looking up at this piece of cleared property, is required. The way this progressed seems very much to the benefit of the view of lot 2, and not to the benefit of the neighbors along Waterview Terrace.
Rather than at the expense of the neighbor.
At the expense of the neighbors on Waterview Terrace, because it was kind of a segmented action, right? Draw the building permit, cut the lot, then come in for the subdivision very rapidly thereafter. This doesn't leave a great feeling in terms of attempts to preserve the view sheds in that space. And certainly the board would not have if the subdivision plan had been in front of us, we would not have approved the extent of clearing which was actually undertaken when it was considered as a single-family lot. Now that this all probably seems somewhat complex, but
No,
it was
you
actually a pretty direct draw permit, cut the trees, come in, ask for a subdivision once the view has been established that you want for lot 2. So at least that's what the progression looks like from my seat. And so I think that that a plan which shows extensive restoration of trees on lot 2 is required.
Well, we can add that as a contingency, correct, Dominic?
Well, the board has some authority under the State Environmental Quality Review Act to ensure that the application and the applicant have mitigated their environmental impacts to the greatest extent practicable. So I think the board does have some discretion there. You haven't adopted a negative declaration yet, and so the question then becomes, do you find the plan to be in a state that mitigates its environmental impacts?
At this stage, certainly I do not see it as having mitigated its environmental impacts at this stage without a landscaping plan that shows extensive replanting of the trees which were removed.
So I cannot speak to the intention of the.
Oh, that were the trees.
I ask,
How mature forest?
how high were the trees?
I had not been onto the site
Right, not only-
prior to any clearing, being completed.
It was
I know
relatively,
that
it was
we're-
relatively mature. It was mature growth.
It was mature.
If I might,
It was mature growth.
That wasn't, I'm one of the neighbors, but that's not.
Who are
my
these
property.
people? Who are these people? I have to have.
could you state your name if, are you
And
the
I can't
neighbors?
see who they are.
We're trying, the only question is how high, if anyone knows how high
I do
those
not
trees
know.
were.
I was that, where they were clear was not where I lived.
I still don't.
Could you have your name, please?
Yeah, Alex Sarkey, S-A-R-T-I.
Okay. All right,
And what did you say?
I said I do not live at the property where the trees were cleared inappropriately, so I do not know how high they.
And you don't know how to look up, well, the bottom line is, the question is,
there.
how high were the trees?
So Steve knows.
Steve knows. Steve could, he's.
But I recuse myself.
So, yeah, he can't comment, so. Okay, with that, we'd like to know how high the trees were.
I have no way of determining that as it happened.
I believe it was mature growth prior to the cutting.
Just based on the aerial that I have here, it looks like there was some mature growth. It looks like there were also a lot of trees naturally down already, but I can't speak to.
Okay, with that, I think that we can move it forward by addressing that issue and by asking that we receive some information related to the potential mitigation of what was done on the project site.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
period.
I would ask the applicant to work with our planner to establish an appropriate plantings, et cetera, to mitigate the clearing which was undertaken improperly.
Yeah,
Reasonable,
my
Mary?
suggestion would be
Yes.
to, I'm sorry, Mary.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
My suggestion would be to look at the mix of vegetation that's on the site currently, the various species of trees, and try to mimic that to an extent. Obviously, if they're particularly look like near the driveway area that was over cleared, the neighbor's driveway, that you could use some trees there. I think that might be an appropriate location for something that's has more of a narrow canopy, because obviously that's your driveway, and you don't want things to be constantly hanging over. But yeah, otherwise, besides driveway areas where you need to be particular about how wide your tree canopy is, or places where you may have to be concerned about your root system, damaging utilities or anything like that, or heaving driveways, I think otherwise you should really just look at the mix of species of deciduous trees that are on the site and try to mimic that.
I think a reasonable mitigation plan would facilitate moving the project forward, but I do think that the condition of a mitigated plan would be appropriate.
The landscaping plan, Mr. Chairman, I believe should also include specifics on reestablishing vegetation in the area disturbed by the installation of the force mains and sewer line, which will proceed to, I'm trying to remember the name of the
Lakewood Drive.
Lakewood Drive.
Dominic, we are within our authority to ask for that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there it is. And from that point, I think the board would be favorably considered, okay?
Okay. Is there a specific amount that the board is looking to area, I guess, number wise? that the board would find
But
appropriate.
we don't know what the disturbance was, because we don't even know the height of the trees that were disturbed. But I think the board would, if I speak for the board, would defer, Kristen, with your input on that. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of factors with respect to how much, I mean, the board members don't really know. You've got to take the size of the house and, they're not going to suggest a number where where it's not possible, right? So you don't want to have trees on top of the house
Right.
or in an area where the applicant or the new homeowner is going to clear them anyways.
Absolutely.
Because he put trees too close to the back of the house and then a homeowner wants to put in a pool or something and you create. So I think they would be easier for the board members to really see something.
Okay.
They'll be able to.
I think that, I should even after you, Kristen, but I think the term reasonable is something that might be.
Yes, and my apologies, I used the word area, and I meant more of a square footage
Right.
than a location.
Yeah,
And it didn't mean that to be confusing.
Yeah, it's not on you. I mean,
Okay.
you didn't do that.
Right.
But you're
Okay.
now being asked to mitigate, so,
Absolutely,
okay,
absolutely, not a problem.
thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too, thank you. With that, we have Star Warehouse somewhere around here.
Actually, it was, I found out the size of the trees. But the guy who's watching.
Well, just for your information, yeah, okay, I'm curious,
They're 30 to 50 feet tall.
the big trees.
Full mature.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
He just texted me, he's watching.
Okay, perfect, thank you very much. Those big trees. Okay,
Mature growth.
that would be mature. Okay, with that, I'm sorry. Okay, here we are,
I'm not done.
you were on.
Good evening, John Goldberg of Tim Miller Associates, representing Star Warehouse. Nick Lucanetta from Cusack and Fowler, the engineer, couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm representing the project. We're here for basically some feedback on the final environmental impact statement for Star Warehouse, which we submitted last month. And a little bit of background, there was a public hearing on January 3rd, where we got comments from the board and the public and its consultants. And the FEIS basically responds to those comments, both the verbal comments at the meeting, and then there were 6 letters that were sent on the DEIS, including from Orange County Department of Planning, Storm King Art Center, and New York State DOT. So those comment letters and the comments at the public hearing were responded to in the FEIS. So we're here to just get some feedback and hear what the board has to say.
Very good, well, thank you, but with that, Kristen?
yes, so we did review the FEIS. We have several comments on the document. What I wanted to talk to the board about is just, as you review the document, keep in mind that this is the lead agency's document rather than the applicant. So you really want to make sure that all of the responses in this document reflect the board's opinion, the board's conclusions, the board's findings. So you better be comfortable with all of the language inside it and all the conclusions that are reached. With that being said, I won't go through all of my comments. They're mostly kind of a few questions. The FEIS should certainly contain kind of a preliminary section that gives a history of the seeker process to date and to give a project description. But for the most part, the rest of the stuff are just kind of wordsmithing and asking questions. I won't go through all of them for you.
Thank you, Kristen. Sean?
Ditto, I'm not gonna go through all my comments that,
Have you provided the comments to the?
I can provide it to the applicant.
Okay.
It does not have them.
I haven't seen them.
Okay.
You? Okay, sorry, Dave.
No, that's fine. So, everything from water firefighting purposes and the septic and sewage disposal, as well as stormwater comments that we've provided for the applicant's consideration.
Okay.
The comments at this point are to the board who will produce the final document, not to the I mean, this is now our document, right? I mean,
Yeah, a lot of the comments are asking for the applicant to provide additional information so the board can make a decision.
Right, okay. So we're not yet at the stage where the board is adopting the final language.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, Sean. Sorry.
With that,
No comments at this time.
I'll hold off on you then, okay? Mary Beth?
Not yet,
Say,
not yet.
not yet.
Yeah, I look forward to receiving a copy of the FEIS and holding these comments that you've provided next to it. I will say, one direction I'm thinking about already is, in terms of mitigation for the view shed impacts caused by the new tank. I think the removal of the existing tank would be consistent with proper mitigation of the view shed impacts of the new tank.
Didn't we talk about
I saw it in the, on page 3.7-5, I did see that you proposes to maintain the existing water tank and not remove it. But the applicant also asserts that the existing water tank is not in use, nor do they intend to use it as part of the fire prevention system. I therefore believe that proper mitigation would be to remove the existing tank rather than just leave it. We have another tank elsewhere in town on a similar industrial property, which over time, because it's not in use, has become really an eyesore. And so I do think that with the new tank going in and the proximity to the Storm King Art Center, it makes sense to remove the existing tank. Additionally, Sean, I would ask you to pursue closely with the fire chief just exactly how fire prevention is working for this split site. There is some discussion here about the fire system for the new structure will be complete using this new tank, abandoning the old pond system that they have out there in terms of additional water. But that still doesn't resolve what's happening with what has been a shared system up to this date. I'm really unclear. There are some legal assertions also made by the applicant inside of this document about that shared fire suppression system. I'm just asking for some help digging into that because it's both a legal and an engineering question. Of course, the town's goal in the end is we want a working fire suppression system at both structures that has somebody who's responsible for them. It's bonded and supported properly, and and we know it's going to work. We're going out there and testing it. It's being properly maintained, et cetera. So that's where we want to end up, obviously, is proper fire suppression. But it's really unclear to me here how the site, which is now kind of cut out of the new system, is going to achieve that. The applicant, I believe, is saying that they are not legally responsible for any changes to the fire suppression system on the adjacent site. And I'm curious about that.
I think that that's probably accurate. I mean, my understanding is that even though there's a shared system, which obviously has been working, which has been an issue that's been raised by the town for many years now, that it's clear that the two landowners have not been coordinating and resolving that situation. So this particular applicant is looking to build their own system, and that's probably a better idea moving forward since the existing situation hasn't been advantageous. But in terms of fire suppression, I think that's probably a preferable way that the town wants to be, where this building, has its own fire suppression system and safety in place, and that can be monitored and maintained rather than, a lot of this going on between two different.
So we may actually benefit from the separation of responsibility for the fire suppression system.
Correct. I mean, I think as a practical matter that's probably the way forward, but it doesn't address your other concern, which is essentially visual impact of leaving a water tower in place that's failing or
Abandoned. It's
abandoned.
basically
Rust away, right?
But the difficulty there is that it's there's a joint responsibility. So once again.
But it's not in service.
It does not appear to be, right? So.
That's my understanding, it's not in service.
Not
Right.
in service.
So,
But it's owned by
I think,
two entities?
requiring the two entities to have at least some meeting of the minds of removing something that's not there, is something to consider.
And the adjacent parcel is also before this board for a project, correct?
It is.
John sees a workability there.
But I'll come back to my original statement, which is I think that proper mitigation for establishing a new water tank is the removal of the existing water tank.
And Dominic, you're saying we.
I think that it's wise, I mean.
But John said we have two projects, the two entities are before this. It's workable.
But this FEIS has to have mitigation for impacts. One of those impacts is a viewshed impact. And my suggested mitigation is the removal of the existing tank.
I think the existing tank, if it's abandoned and it's allowed to stay there, will only continue to deteriorate over time, in addition to being, now 2 water tanks on the property.
So we are within the purview of this board to ask for the removal as a mitigation.
Yes, and as Kristen mentioned, the FEIS, even though it's been prepared, an initial draft by the applicant, the document, when it becomes adopted by the board, becomes your document, because it is.
So that can be, excuse me for interrupting you, Dominic, that can be a condition of.
Well, I mean, yes and no, I mean, you can't say that they have to build a space elevator to Mars on the site. They, it has to be reasonable, comments and responses based on the public record and the concerns before the board. And I think that is a reasonable one.
Okay, so we have a reasonable request, and we'll integrate that into, okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
very good. What am I missing? Nobody? Okay, and Dominic, we are taking no action, I got it.
Yeah, so I think at this point, you can acknowledge receipt of the FEIS that's been submitted by the applicant in time for this meeting. There are no specific timeframes for the adoption of the FEIS. The board now has comments from your consultants regarding it. My suggestion would be that you review it and also schedule it for your July 10th meeting to provide any additional comments that the board may have back to the applicant in case there are further revisions that are necessary.
And we might ask the applicant to respond to the questions raised by the
I
consultant.
think the applicant would be well served to go knock on the neighbor's door and say, we got to do something about this tower. Right. So, not that they perhaps haven't done that before, but nevertheless, it's a critical point in this application. This application has been pending since 2016. And so, the time I think is right for some potential solutions out there.
Okay, well, we'll work towards that. Very good.
So we hear the comments from the board, and we'll take those under consideration, pass those on to the applicant.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The meeting for July 10th we'll be doing at Munger. Because with treetop, I would expect a large crowd.
Okay. Thank you. With that, then pursuant to John's suggestion, we need a motion to schedule a meeting on July 10th. We'll now schedule the meeting for July 10th at Munger Cottage.
So
Thank you for, second,
Second?
in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
And so we will do the notice for that. There's no legal notice that needs to be published. We have to advise the local. And we also have to post a notice here at Town Hall. And we'll post one up at Munger as well. And in connection with that, and also that will be a regular meeting of the board, even though it's scheduled for that particular day. So there will be a work session at 6:30, which is open to the public.
Right.
And then formal meeting will begin at 7 p.m.
Okay, the board is reminded, this is another location. That is Munger Cottage.
And that would be noted for the public hearing also.
Correct. Well, the public hearing will
that.
begin at 7 o'clock that day.
At
And
that
so
location.
you can see that at least 3 applications already that are on that agenda. The vet rep for the public hearing, Treetop in anticipation of their submission, and a review of that, as well as any additional board comments that you may have on the STAR expansion that we just discussed.
Okay, the question that Bill, I think, had asked, not this, Bill too, had asked, was does he need to lug the entirety of the volume of materials that we've received related to Treetop? And I think that the answer is no, that you bring your summary materials. We would require a truck to bring the stuff in.
In connection with that, Treetop has requested to see if any of the board members would prefer to receive an electronic copy of their next submission knowing that they need to, once the submission's completed, that they would have to do a full distribution in print. But as you remember, perhaps from the original submission, that it was a substantial amount of material. So if any of you would like to receive a digital copy, please let me know, and I'll pass that on to their
Okay.
council.
Board acknowledge, if you.
Yeah, I'd like a digital copy this time.
I would too, Dominic, and that's
just too crazy.
As well.
that's three.
Yes,
Anybody else?
yes,
Okay,
Okay,
we're saving paper.
actually, I think it's all.
Yes.
it's all.
Yeah, the National Task Force on Waste Paper is now prevailing. Okay, with that, I have one other issue, one small discussion item. I received acknowledgement from the state through, for Storm King Art Center's stuff, the SWIP and their permit. We don't have to take any action on it, but Sean, you have something?
Sure, so the Storm King Art Center is pursuing a 5-acre waiver, which in the stormwater design manual allows them to disturb more than 5 acres at one time. And that has to be specifically requested, hence the letter. We're working with the applicant on ways to try to mitigate that and keep it as low as possible, but I believe that request can be addressed with the stormwater management officer in Gary's office, not the planning board directly.
So the planning board doesn't, we don't have to take any action whatsoever?
That's correct, yep.
Okay. It's acknowledged on the record, at least we know that if anybody wants to look at it. Anybody want to see it? There it is, usually like to see it. Okay, we're good. Sorry? Oh, yes, there was some discussion, if I might, regarding the possibility of acquiring comments from the consultants a little earlier. Some of the board members have asked that. I personally review my stuff on Sunday afternoons, so it's good, but if there's a possibility of obtaining some of the comments earlier, that would be great. Retort, you can retort, this is a good company. Then we think the world of our consultants, so it's not an argument, it's just a request.
Yeah, when would you want them?
Members, if you were,
Well, Wednesday or Thursday would be good rather than Friday.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, it's only when there's 5 on the agenda that it gets a little bit backed up, but yeah, it's not usually an issue to get them done by Wednesday or Thursday.
thank you. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for.